Saturday and Sunday. At the end of that NEC meeting, we try to brief the Nigerian public through you on our perception about what is going on in the country, in the educational sector, and particularly in the universities, the public universities. That's why we invited you today. So permit me to go through the text of the press conference. Copy we made later and give it to you before you go. The Academic Staff Union of University held its National Executive Council meeting at the University of Lagos between Saturday 12th and Sunday 13th February 2022. During this meeting, the union undertook a comprehensive review of the state of Nigerian universities and the worsening living and working conditions in the university system and the nation at large. The union was particularly alarmed by the declining condition of the federal and state-owned universities and their utter neglect over the years. It is therefore reasonable to devote much of this media briefing to the failure by the federal government to fully implement the Memorandum of Understanding and the Memorandum of Action they had with the union over the past 13 years. We shall also draw attention to the various efforts our union and concerned individual organizations have made in the past to persuade the federal government to honor its signed commitment in this regard. 1. Non-implementation of MOU and MOA by the FGN. You may recall that after a series of exceedingly rigorous engagements and renegotiation, the federal government entered into an agreement with our union in 2009, that's 3 years ago, formerly known as FGN ASUU 2009 agreement. 13 years after this agreement was signed, its provisions were only partially implemented, while the condition of service of academic staff, funding, and autonomy continued to be eroded in all our campuses. After years of pressure and insistence, the FGN reluctantly agreed to commence the renegotiation of the agreement due in 2013. When we signed the agreement in 2012, as part of the condition in that agreement was that on 3-year basis, there will be review of that agreement. But we're at least 13 years, and that agreement has not been reviewed. The implication is this. In 2009, an average professor take-home then is now about 500 times what they take home today. When you should look at the depreciation of the currency. And the university is an international body, a universal. Therefore, that is why today, when you enter our typical university, you hardly see anybody from outside Nigeria being a lecturer at Nigerian University. Against the norm. Like I said earlier, when I was a student in my department, a state university, we had lecturers from 4 different countries teaching in one department. But today, even in Unilag, how cosmopolitan it is, you can hardly find more than 10 or 20, more than 10 non-Nigerian teaching here. And when they are here, they have one reason or the other. Either they are married to a Nigerian, or a Nigerian is married to any of them. Not because they want to come here and lecture. However, after years of pressure and insistence, FGN agreed to negotiate, I talked about that. However, to our shock and dismay, FGN is yet to indicate readiness to sign that draft agreement, which is urgently needed to address the theoretical condition of our universities. 2. Non-deployment of university transparency and accountability solution. In 2020, when we were on strike, over this thing they call IPs, a fraud-laden IPs. And thank God, the same government had told Nigerians that that so-called payment procedure is ridden with corruption. Those of you who had access to the Auditor General report recently, a government controlling agency showed you that you have a 200-something page document, and there is no page you don't see one form of fraud or the other. And you also notice how much Nigeria is paying to foreign countries for that particular program. So, we told them that as a union, we will not, that document is laden with fraud and that it should not be used in the university because university is universal. that you can employ any lecturer from anywhere in the world, but with IPs, it cannot be captured. The lecturer can go to somewhere of visiting. You have a faculty in UNILAG and a faculty in Federal University of Agriculture, Bagutan, and for whatever other death or resignation, a very critical lecturer is missing in UNILAG, and it's available in Abeokuta. You hire university to come here and teach, just for that purpose. And that is different, and it happened all over the world. So this payment platform was unilaterally imposed by the federal government, further compounding the multifaceted problem of our universities. The imposition of IPs undermined the university's tradition of sabbatical leave, visiting, and adjunct appointment, another essential aspect of university autonomy, by attempting to integrate the financial and bureaucratic administration of the universities into the civil service structure. Our union insisted that IPs is incompatible with the peculiar attributes and operation of public university system, and we shall continue to resist it. The position of these IPs challenged our union to develop the alternative system to IPs, which is University Transparency and Accountability Solution, UTAS. This locally developed and cost-effective alternative payment platform have the distinct capacity to check corruption and preserve the inherent autonomy of Nigerian universities for the good of the country. Regrettably, the federal government is still dragging over its adoption, contrary to an earlier agreement with our union. But one of the conditions for calling on the 2009-10 agreement strike was that once UTAS is tested, it will be deployed in paying the salary of the university workers. And that document will be tested by NIDA, which we accepted. But note, when IPs were brought from outside this country, it was never tested. And you can see the effect. So, a system, a solution came from outside the country unknown and came to your country, you didn't test it before you used it. But the one developed by your academics, the egghead in your Nigerian system, was developed and you insisted it must be tested before it can be used. You can see how we have become slaves. The one brought by their masters can go without testing, and we are seeing the effect. And then the one developed by your best brain in this country, you insisted on testing, which we agreed. And when we finished producing, it was sent to NIDA for testing. And after testing, from their own, that is the government, ordinarily it should not be a government agency. If we have a problem with the government, it should not be a government agency that should test that solution for independent body. But we acceded to them. And when they finished testing, on technical issues, the union scored almost 80%. The solution scored almost 80% pass, and about 20% not pass, according to them. Then they said we must also bring other end users to the system to also evaluate it. And they went to the registry, brought a staff, went to registry and got a staff, and they also evaluated it. And they scored it about 90%, and insisted it should be applied immediately to solve the problem in the university. But the government said they cannot deploy it. But funny enough, and we are going to call the press, especially on this aspect I'm going to talk about now, that what they did was, in order to say the UTAS did not pass, they went and plagiarized. They went to work done by other people long ago, and they planted it on the report to show that it's a failure. And we have had evidence, and like I said, we're going to have a press conference, and we use PowerPoint to demonstrate to Nigerian people how they lifted other people's work that were done long ago, and they planted on their so-called test on IPs to show that it's negative. And we'll show to you, you will read what those people did some time ago, which is different from IPs testing and what they have implanted, to show that they just lifted to show that IPs should not be used in the interest of a few people who are making so much money from IPs. From IPs. So the UTAS, the test will be demonstrated to you. Visitation panel report. You recall that also one of the conditions for calling on the strike the other time, the 2020, was that the federal government will send visitation panel to Nigerian universities at least 11 years after the last one. But the law says it should be every 5 years. And that panel was set up in February 2021. We are in February 2022. The report of that panel is not out. And as a union, we believe that if you believe there's a problem in the system, that is the way to check it. But they are still reluctant in releasing the report. And it has no financial value if they say they don't have money. End academic allowances. Competitors of the press, the federal government promised to mainstream the EAA, which is the End Academic Allowance, into the annual federal budget in the various memoranda signed with ASUU. And the government recently released 21.1 billion for payment of some EAA allowances. However, many years of pay entitlement are still outstanding, and this will also trigger the crisis within the system. Then, very importantly, non-payment of EAA to members of ASUU in OAU. As of today, OAU has been on strike for the past 1 week. And the reason being that when the 22.1 billion was released, there is a template for paying it to members of our union and academic staff. And that template was developed between ASUU and the federal government. However, when it got to OAU, the VC had refused to pay. And the reason that he has another union, according to him, that should also make his own input how to pay the EAA outside what we agreed between ASUU and the federal government. And he called that his union CONWA, which is unregistered. And by our law, a union cannot be operating in a system that is illegal because it's not registered anywhere. And that VC insisting on paying it to them, and that there is a part of them, and we believe that is against the agreement between ASUU and the federal government. And we are therefore calling on Nigeria and the government to call that Vice Chancellor to order and be directed to pay the EAA as directed by the template, using the template reached between ASUU and the federal government. Anything outside that will be corruption. Illegal appointment of Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Patami as a professor of cybersecurity by photo. We talked to you on this the other time. You may recall that our union dissociated itself for the appointment of Dr. Isa Ibrahim Patami as a professor of cybersecurity by the Federal University of Technology of Owerri during our NEC meeting held at the University of Abuja on 18th and 19th November 2021. Until a fact-finding team to be dispatched to the branch reports its finding. We have done that. The team visited the branch on 10th to 14th February 2022 and reported back to NEC. As a result of the comprehensive report submitted on all the relevant matters, NEC hereby rejected or in its entirety the purported appointment of Dr. Isa Ibrahim Patami as a professor of cybersecurity. From the evidence available to us, Dr. Patami was not qualified, and the said appointment violated established procedure for appointment for professor in the university system. You can't be a serving minister and you are taking a job as a lecturer in the university. You are taking a double job. Because you can't be a lecturer, you can't be a professor, you are serving as a minister, and you are applying for a job in the university, and you are given a job and you are accepted. It's against all the rules, and we are surprised that the government still allowed it to stand, which means they are encouraging such illegality in Nigerian system. If it's not stopped, before you start knowing, you can be a vice chancellor somewhere and be something, you can be working in Punch and you are working somewhere and what have you. This is why we are saying that Patami should either be asked to quit as a minister or he should be tried for doing double job within the same federal system. From the evidence about what was not qualified and the same appointment violated procedure for appointment of professor university, NEC directs all its members and branches of our union throughout the federation not to recognize, accord, or treat Dr. Isa Ali Patami as a professor of cybersecurity under any guise. NEC also resolved to sanction all ASUU members, including the Vice Chancellor, who participated in the process that led to the illegal appointment in accordance with the established rule of the Union. Proliferation of state universities and even federal universities, because we have been told, and it's correct, that as of today, every senator is holding a bill for establishment of university. For them, it's a constituency project, not established in the interest of our country, our educational system. The federal government had claimed that the bill to amend the National University Commission Act with a view of empowering NUC to address the problem of proliferation and underfunding of state universities was developed by ASUU and by the NUC as presented before the National Assembly for consideration, which they promised to do. This promise has lingered for too long, and more universities at both the federal and state levels are being established despite the challenges of funding. You now hear some funding University of Transportation, this first I'm hearing it, the University of Medical Sciences, the University of Cyber Security, the University of ICT. These are the things you are not hearing as a country. Very soon we'll start hearing maybe University of Chin or the University of Bread. Recently, the Senate has signed bills establishing 3 additional federal universities, while State Assembly in Lagos and Delta have signed bills to establish 2 and 3 additional universities respectively. If you have a state like Lagos and you have ASUU, Lagos, the area of Lagos is very small. Why can't you spend those money to establish 2 in funding ASUU and create place for admission? In ASUU, overnight, created 3. Meanwhile, the one you have, you cannot fund it. Abia State, overnight, created 3. Meanwhile, the one you have, the last time you paid the lecturer is about 6-7 months ago. So why are we now, what we are seeing is creating universities. But the funny thing, they will not allow their children to attend those so-called universities they are creating. They send them abroad. So that's one of the bill is there, and we are asking the National Assembly to, as quickly as possible, pass that bill so that it becomes impossible that before you will start a university and become functional, you should be able to keep between 20 and 30 billion somewhere as a foundation to fund that university over 10 years. And if you don't meet that criteria, you should not be allowed to start a university just to put it there and refer it to TED fund. With marginal academics in state universities, we are constrained to note with sadness that the state government and high-hardened vice chancellors have continued to victimize our members in Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu University, Abia State University, Kogi State University, Ebonyi State University, Ambrose Ali University, and Enugu State University of Science and Technology. It is very bad. Those who watched recently, a governor sat down in his office and appointed vice chancellors and deputy vice chancellors, Ebonyi State governor, and brought them to his office to inaugurate them as so-called management. Meanwhile, the rule for appointing vice chancellor and deputy vice chancellor are well laid out in the law. And the governor, as a governor, has no say whatsoever in the process of appointing VC, but you just did them. You just appointed them. In Edo State University, which is Ambrose Ali, the governor woke up took what looked like a bill to the State Assembly and set up what they refer to as special intervention team to replace the law of the university. And today, if you have 2 days ago, the governor also sat down, removed the vice chancellor, and appointed vice chancellor and DVC. This is against the rule of university worldwide, and it's an attempt to destroy the system. In Koyu, the governor also sat up the vice chancellor appointed his own union, and called it Progressive ASUU, and appointed his DVC as the chairman of his Progressive ASUU in a university, a DVC. Can you be a DVC, serving DVC, and be a chairman of a union? These are completely against the rule. And when our branch tried to resist it, they would deal with them. Threaten them with sack, threaten to kill them, go to disrupt their meetings, and what have you. These are the challenges we are having in the system, that if not quickly intervention, they will destroy the Nigerian university system. Jam and encroachment into universities. This is another area we are also having problems. By the law establishing university, it is the Senate of the university that is empowered to admit students, not JAMB. What JAMB is empowered to do is to conduct exam, a basic examination that helps the student will go through, the potential student, and then you set up a minimum, a benchmark above which you should admit a student. But today, JAMB has taken over everything, from advertisement to admission to changing of courses. A student comes here and it's not done by JAMB. And in the process, many universities can no more admit students. There is a particular university, ABU, that and they have finished everything about admission before JAMB agreed to release students in one particular department. So this present registrar of JAMB have taken over all the function. But unfortunately, when he was a vice chancellor in Ilori, he was the one that was so vocal about JAMB and how they conduct admission. Now I have become secretary, and he had converted it to a revenue generation agency on the pretext that he's refunding money to government. Should our younger generation, youth, who are seeking for admission, will not be paying money as a revenue generator to federal government? Instead of charging the students, so that you charge what you need to run the system, you want to charge them excessively. For you to register, you pay money. To change course, you pay money. To get your result, you pay money. Just to create the pressure that generating money to the federal government. Or maybe, hopefully, so they can get future employment. These are the things we are against. I hope the Nigerian government should call the registrar of JAMB to order and allow university to run according to the laws establishing the university, which empower the Senate of the university to admit students, and not a setup, JAMB, where you don't have any academic staff now doing admission for a university. Admission is purely an academic affair, not administrative. Finally, state of the nation. So that is one of the problems that we're having today. JAMB virtually taking over the role and function of the admission of students into Nigerian university system. State of the nation. Next concern will concern the deep crisis in Nigerian state, fueled by widespread and rising insecurity, kidnapping, banditry, and insurgency in various parts of the country. The pervasive insecurity and its various manifestations have negatively undermined the capacity of Nigerian people and the country to foster progress and the general economic development of the country. This instability has brought about untold hardship of inflation, scandalous rising cost of food, oppressive electricity tariff, and fuel price increases, resulting in deepening poverty among our people. Recently, you found out that in Lagos and some other areas that a country like Nigeria can import fuel that they have confirmed is completely, what do they use for it? To a country like Nigeria. What that means is that we import things to this country without test. And the cost to the other Nigerian on the street who bought those fuel is unimaginable. Increasing boundary of the country since the return of civil rule in 1999 is making the country to bleed. Nigeria has always claimed progress on the war against insurgency, but it is unfortunate that billions of naira have been spent on insecurity with little or nothing to show for it. The exchange of $1 to naira is currently above 460 naira. Inflation is so high that the purchasing power of Nigeria is being eroded daily due to the rising cost of commodity. All this has made nonsense of the 30 million minimum wage, which many oppressive governments have even refused to pay. How can a family survive with 30,000 naira a month in a country where a bag of rice is above 30,000? Unsteady electric supply is the reality of the sad situation in the country today. It's almost impossible to put off 6 hours of uninterrupted power supply in most parts of Nigeria. This is the face of unjustifiable high tariff by the profit-driven private sector electricity company. And it is no longer news that the so-called regulation of the power sector has subjected millions of Nigerians to untold hardship. Last week, the federal government made the effort to withdraw from circulation the adulterated fuel supplied by some registered companies. This attests to the failure of the legislature in those sectors, and those who were saddled with the duty of inspecting the fuel before supplying failed to do their work. We see that unless those farm people are appropriately sanctioned to the knowledge of the generator of Nigeria, this shenanigan of leadership failure in the petroleum sector, which has made it impossible to fix the country refineries, will continue. It is a sad development that Nigeria have all the crude, we have the human resources, but we are still importing fuel, that we cannot build refineries. We cannot maintain the one we have. Rather, we export crude and import fuel. Just like I have a farmer who produces yam. He sell the yam to the market and buy roasted yam from the market because he cannot roast yam nor cook yam. We must reiterate that ASUU members are not insulated from the consequences of the pervasive social backlash and suffocating economy. Come rain, come shine, our union shall continue to stand with other petroleum Nigerians to work for bringing relief to the suffering and toiling of Nigerians. Next resolution, you realize in the past 2 months, since October and August in Ilorin, we have been putting the federal government on alert on our MOA and MOU that we signed in 2020. And they have continually promised to implement those MOA. But we are now in February, and virtually none of those issues have been resolved. Consequently, at our last meeting of 12th and 13th February 2022, the neck of our union resolved as follows. Considering the government has failed to fully implement the memorandum of action signed with the Academic Staff Union of the University on 23rd December 2013, given that the draft report of the negotiation agreement has been submitted for finalization for more than 9 weeks, more than 9 works now, and noting that the forceful payment of ASUU member salary and emolument with integrated payroll and personnel management information system IPs, and non-adoption of the University Transparency and Academic Solution have continued to shortchange our members. NEC therefore resolved to embark on a 4-week rollover total and comprehensive strike beginning from Monday, 14th February 2020, which is today. That is the resolution of our NEC at the last meeting that ended yesterday. Conclusion. Comrades and compatriots, it was a painful decision for NEC to arrive at the rollover strike option, contrary to the view canvases of quarters. Our union looked to disrupt academic activities on our campuses. We love our students and respect their parents and guardians. We are so much sensitive to the genuine concern about stable academic calendar in public university expressed by patriotic Nigerians and lovers of Nigeria. But the blame should be squarely put at the foot doorstep of those who ignore our patriotic yearning for developmental-oriented education system. The patience of our members have been tasked beyond tolerable limit. The greatest asset of any nation is its human capital. Any nation that pays lip service to education, as we currently witness in Nigeria, will only grow old and never experience genuine development. We therefore seek the understanding and support of all stakeholders to make the Nigerian government more responsive to issues of human capital development, including health and education. We invite all of our education to join our struggle for a greater Nigeria. Nigerian politicians keep proliferating education institutions without prioritizing education. ASUU will not tolerate in its historic responsibility of advocating for an improved university system because it holds the key to our collective prosperity and better future for our children's children. So let's work together to feed this country that they are permanently trying to destroy. Thank you, and the struggle continues.